Hey, I'm just gonna wait a little bit for other people to join before I start my discussion. I'll probably give it my usual 5 minutes and then I'll get started. Actually, I've been cleaning my room today just because it's been needing done. I have so much that I need to throw out just because I'm a garbage person. Like I gave like 3 bags of clothes that I never wear to Goodwill today. Some of that was sad because some of it I used to wear a lot, but it just doesn't fit anymore. Like I had a really nice blue and brown formal dress that I had to get rid of just because it didn't fit, and I loved that dress. And a nice kind of knitted brown sweater I put over it. It was a little button up. I felt like a school teacher wearing it, but I loved it. So yeah, I'm just gonna wait about 5 minutes for chat to fill up, and if not, I'll just get started. I'm also probably gonna occasionally go back to Amazon and look around because I've got Christmas presents to start getting, even though it's just November 2nd, but I like to get started ahead of time because I hate feeling rushed at the last minute. And also, I love Christmas. I like winter. Winter's like my favorite month. Winter's my favorite month. Winter's my favorite season. Just because I like snow. I really like snow. I really like hot chocolate. I really like naps. Like 1 year it snowed so badly where I live. School was canceled for like 3 weeks straight, and I just spent the entire time painting and watching the sunrise over the snowbanks. It was really, really peaceful. And that's just the way I like to live my life. I love Christmas shopping, Christmas shopping, Christmas shopping. Though I probably won't find anything anyone likes. Actually, my cousin might like that. Little moon. It's actually kind of cool. Maybe he'd like that. I don't know. Just waiting for some people to join before I get started. I get OneDrive. My bad. Oh no! I want these for my future house. They're references to The Office, and they're like little throw pillows that say Bears beats Battlestar Galactica, and one says Dwight, you ignorant slut. I want this for my room. I want this for my house or my apartment because let's be real, it's gonna be an apartment because we're poor. Frost and I are very poor. The struggle is real. This is all stuff I would want. Because I want a house someday. Or an apartment. And a small dog. A small dog. I don't know if that says anything about being a millennial. Oh, decorative throw pillows! I am an Amazon slut. Amazon slut. That's my new name. Amazon slut. I don't know, this is a little different from my usual schedule. I've just been doing so much today. Gotten a lot done. Gotten all my clothes off the floor and on top of my bed, so tonight they're gonna go right back on my floor before they go to the washer. Tomorrow I'm getting rid of all of the garbage. And then I'm gonna go through another test trial and probably throw away more stuff until I figure out what I'm keeping and what I'm completely getting rid of. Just because there's so much I gotta do. Like if you can see my dresser behind me, it's just completely cluttered. which says loads about my lifestyle. That's another reason why everything gets cluttered is that I'm gonna have to start at the beginning with all that. That's another problem is where to get started on this conversation, just because there's so much to it. So I want to get off Amazon like I should, because it is now past the 5-minute mark. All right. So to begin this conversation, I should address that I do have PTSD, which probably you're thinking, how do you have PTSD? You've never been to war, which I haven't. I've never been to war, but PTSD isn't just triggered or going to war isn't the only way you can get PTSD. For me, it's childhood trauma, which is just like, oh, this white girl's just talking about all her problems and everything, but it's a real thing. Like I have severe panic attacks a lot, and depression is something that I go through a lot often, and it's just a ever lurking thing that I have. All right, like I can best sum up when everything started going wrong with my childhood when I was either 7 or 8, and that's just because my mom kidnapped me. But you're probably thinking, it's your mom. How can your mom kidnap you? But it all starts with a lengthy custody battle. My dad wanted full custody of me because my mom is a real piece of work. And from there, and she was moving to New Mexico. And from there, I'm saying "and from there" a lot. And well, after she went there for a whole year, while I started going to a different school where my dad lives, where my grandparents live, and all that good stuff, she came back and we visited with her, and she asked me and my sister if I wanted to go with her, and of course I said yes because I'm 8 years old and I like my mom. That's changed since then, and so we went. Well, I didn't realize that she didn't tell my dad she was taking me and that there were cops on her tail the entire trip. And that there were cops crawling the town looking for my sister and I. And my stepbrother who my stepdad took illegally too. And that was just a lengthy situation. Well, eventually, like my dad and my grandpa even drove down, and I think my grandma was telling me a couple months ago there's only been a few times she's heard my grandpa cry, and the last time was when he lost my sister and I again. Like he called her up and he's just like, Betty, I had them and they're gone again. I've lost the girls. And that says something because my grandpa is like this big, burly, badass man who would like chops wood all the time. He's got a really rugged beard. At the same time, he's a guy who names every single pet he gets, and he like loves his fish and his birds and his dog and his cats and his worms. Like he has a lot of worms, and he's just like, this is the multitude. This is multitude too. He's a very interesting man. I love him. But after my dad and grandpa got me back, that whole year I started seeing this therapist who wasn't really a therapist. She was a not social security. She was like what's the word? She was I'm gonna look this up. I want to say social services. I know what it's called, but I'm not sure. Well, she was working with Child Protective Services just to see if my mom, just to get the idea of how I felt about my mom, how I felt about the way I was treating my mom. And of course, I was 7 or 8, and I had no clue what was going on the entire time. I just knew that once a week I went and talked to this lady about my mom. And in the whole time this court battle was going on with my dad and my mom, and I missed a lot of school because of it, to talk about my mom and talk about my dad and my grandparents and so on. And then that year I got pneumonia really badly. It was either pneumonia or the flu. I'm not 100% sure, but I know I was like really sick and I missed like a whole month of school. So I got held back, which really upset me because I thought I tried really hard. Of course, now I look back at it and I'm like, fuck, whatever. I don't care. It's school. And that was like 13 years ago. Who cares? Well, after that happened, my dad had a new girlfriend who she was something. And he brought home this new woman one day, and I was kind of excited because I had just pretty much lost my mom. My mom, that's another thing. My mom didn't even really talk to me while she was out. Like, she called me once, and that was it. So, like, hearing from my mom was a huge and rare occurrence. So, to me, it was just like, maybe, hey, I'm going to get a new mommy. I'm excited. And the whole time I was like picturing this short, scrawny woman, which is what my mom was. And I was just picturing all this, and well, when I actually met the woman who would become my stepmom, she was about 6 feet tall. Nice. She had a heavy build, which I'm not narking on anything because I've got a heavy build. But at the time I was like super scrawny. She had a heavy build. She wore this big black gothic dress, and it was had the bodice and everything, and her boobs were literally popping out. And like her hair was massive. It was bleach blonde, and it was frizzy, and it was everywhere. And I was terrified because I was like, oh. And apparently the first thing I said to her was, "You're fat." And of course, I'm like 7 or 8. What? You can't really like blame a 7 or 8-year-old, especially since I had absolutely no filter at that age, and her son said far worse. But apparently she did not like me because ever since in my life, my I'm trying to think of the right word. Like the niceness of my life dropped, and everything just got really, really bad. So like after he brought her home, she stayed with us for like, I'd say probably a month. And like apparently during that time I couldn't go to my grandma's after school anymore because my dad worked until like 4, and I'd get home about like, or like 4:30. He'd get home about 4:30 to pick us up from my grandparents, and we got out of school, got home like 3:30. So she made it so that we'd go immediately home to my grandparents, and I didn't really like that. I liked going to my grandma's after school, especially, and I really didn't like having to go home with a woman that I really didn't know. So that was a little bad. And she was telling, and yeah, and all the time at 4:30 was when I'd start on my homework at home. Well, when you get home, she's like, "All right, it's time to do your homework." And I remember this. I looked at her and said, "You're not our boss. I don't know this woman. She's telling me what to do, and I don't like that." So I told her that, and that just made everything worse. Because apparently she like when my dad got home, she started crying. It's like, she told me I wasn't her boss and blah blah blah. It's like, lady, I'm only 8. What? Really? Well, eventually my dad married her on Halloween, which is like Halloween's like one, like October is like a really hard month for me to deal with mentally. Like either way, they got married, and things just seemed to be getting worse for me. Like she would like whenever my dad wasn't home, she'd yell at us. She'd one of her favorite things to do was walk into a room where my sister and I were, and she'd smack us as hard as she could on the back of the head, just for no reason. And that was something I didn't like. So sometimes still when people walk into the room, I flinch just because it's a habit. Um, she also had a son that was 2 years younger than Kitty, and I call him Demon Child. And this kid literally got away from murder half the time. She let him do whatever she wanted. They also like cuddled all the time, and he was like 10, no, maybe like probably I think 9 when we left. They got a divorce, and he still slept with her every morning. That's kind of weird to me. But like in her eyes, her son could do no harm. But like he was afraid to get his nails cut, and so his nails would get like really long, and he'd like grab my arm and dig his nails to draw blood, and he'd just laugh. It was messed up. Like, if you haven't noticed, I have like scars all over my arm from my childhood. And like, I don't blame my dad for everything that's happened because she was not nice to him either. Like, the entire reason why she married him was because she thought he had land because we live on a farm. And he felt like he had all this land and everything, that if she married him and then got a divorce, she'd get all this money and stuff, which was wrong. She didn't really get anything. She just got debt. So my dad married this woman, and this woman was a living monster. She forced my family into a religion we didn't really even believe in, but it was her house, so we had to do what she said. And she started home business, and of course, by home business, I mean she sat in front of a computer most of the time while my dad did all the hard work. He did all the packaging, he did everything, and on top of that, she made him get another job. So he was busy all the time, and so he was either gone from like 5 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock at night, and then doing whatever she wanted. Well, she sat in front of a computer, did all the social media stuff, which she was on Facebook all day, and she drank. And that was really it. Like, or she terrorized kids. That was another thing she'd like to do. Like, I remember all summer she'd send us outside, and we'd have to, we couldn't go inside the house for anything. And that was not fun. Like, we weren't even allowed to go inside to go to the bathroom unless we were her son, because her son could do whatever he wanted. Like, another thing I was really worried about was that he would rape Kitty, her son, just because he'd always try to sleep in her bed with her. And I know he's like 2 years younger, but there was something just not right with him. Like, really, something just was wrong. And I was really worried he'd do something to her, so like I'd stay up all night until he passed out on his own bed, and anytime he like tried to sneak into our room, I'd yell at him to get out. So like I didn't sleep very much either during that period of my life. But like I'm pretty sure if my dad threatened to leave her, she threatened to kill us or something messed up, just because it just feels like something she'd do. Like I'm trying to think of really terrible and like it's so hard to talk about. It's not like hard to talk about this stuff, but it's hard to find the right words and the right stories to explain, just because it's all running through my head at once. I mean, some examples of some of the horrible things she's done is that she made me personally throw away a lot of my childhood toys, which I mean we had a lot of stuff as a kid, but when we moved into the house that I live again in, and we've lived in it. I've lived in this house since I was 8. So when we moved from my mom's house to my dad's house, we had at least a huge U-Haul truck full of stuff that we had. And by the time we left, we could fit everything in the back of a minivan. that explains anything. Or how much stuff she's gotten rid of ours. And that's including 2 beds. One of the things that I really remember vividly is that her son was trying to beat the crap out of me, and he was like I said, he was not right, so he was like a really strong 8-year-old compared he was like a really strong 6-year-old compared to me at this age at 10. And I cannot take a hit to save my life. I have a very low pain tolerance, but it's either he was trying to hit me or he was trying to hit me with something. He was going to hit me with something. And I hit him back. Well, and apparently I hit him hard enough to draw blood because I hit him in the mouth. And well, she grabbed my arm and tried to do the same thing to me, and I smacked her back. So she threw me against the dishwasher counter, and I hit my head against the counterpart, and I still have like a little divot where it hit. And then she pinned me against it and got in my face and just started screaming at me. And I don't remember the rest of it. I'm pretty sure I blocked it bad out. Another thing she did was my stepbrother, my sister, and I were on our playground playing together, and we were taking turns to pushing each other off of the top of the play set to see who can to see how far we can actually jump. And well, it was my turn to push my stepbrother, and I did, and he ended up hitting his arm on the play set. Well, he looked at me, started crying, and yelled, "I'm gonna tell on you." And of course, I'm like, "Great." And I tried to explain, "Hey, what happened?" And my stepmom shoved me on the ground, smacked me across the face, and made me stand in the corner for like, I think 2 hours. And the entire time this is happening, I'm thinking, I think it was 12, and I'm like, I've had enough of this. I can't keep living like this. So after I was finally let out of the corner, I grabbed all my stuff. And by all my stuff, I mean I grabbed my school supplies, my jacket, my favorite stuffed animal, which I still have. Her name's Coco. And then I ran to my grandparents' house, who lived like a mile down the road. So I walked all that, and I just remember telling them I can't keep doing this. I can't keep living like that. And I called my dad. My dad's like, I'm trying to do everything I can. I just don't know what to do. Another thing that really I struggled with as a kid was it was Halloween, which figures. And my dad and stepmom were in the car fighting because apparently we missed trick or treating because they moved everything around because of footballers, I think. And well, they were sitting there. I think it was 11. They were screaming and fighting with each other in the car, and my stepmom's daughter was visiting, and she was like 25 when all this happened, when I met her. And they were like screaming and fighting and everything, and I was just tired of hearing it. But eventually my stepmom yelled at him to pull over, and he pulled over into like this place called the Panhandle Pathway, which is like this bike path that runs through the town that I live in, and like a mile by my house. I used to ride my bike to get to school all the time with it. And she's like, "We're going," and she yelled at all of the kids to get out of the car, and she yelled, "We're going home." And I'm like, I don't want to walk home because I'm in my Halloween costume, because I expect to go trick or treating. So I have sheer tights on, a short skirt that comes up to my knees. I have boots with heels on them. I'm not prepared to walk 3.5 miles all the way home. And I don't even have a jacket on. I'm wearing a t-shirt, I think. Or it was either a tank top. I don't know what it was. I can't remember. But I went to go tell my dad. Dad was like, "Dad, I really want to go with you." And he looked at me, he's like, "You can't come with me. Just go home." And I remember I felt really upset about it because I think they were yelling about me having so many late assignments at school because of this, like ever at fifth and sixth grade, my school grades started to drop just because I was so unhappy at home too. And just things were terrible all the way around. So that happened. And I remember walking those 3.5 miles home just crying because I was so upset that I might have made my dad mad enough to not want me anymore, which is messed up. And then finally, those are just some instances. Like every day was like a struggle. Half the time I wasn't allowed to eat dinner because I did something wrong, so she'd send me to bed without food. So like I'm really weird about food now. Like I always make sure I have enough food. I make sure everyone around me eats and like I go for periods at a time where I can't eat just because my stomach's so weird and mentally I can't make myself eat. Um she'd smack us around a lot. She'd always say like these really degrading things to us like she'd always tell me that I was going to be homeless and that no one would love me and that I was a failure at life. Just like stuff like that every day. So like I'm not like against punishing kids or anything, but when you take it to an extreme, there is a problem. Um and she do that to Kitty too. There's stuff like that that really drives a nail in the coffin. Well, when I was like 13, my we moved to a house in a town called Anderson, Indiana. It's like it's not really a town. It's kind of a small city. It's a suburb of Indianapolis, and we lived there for like a month or maybe a little longer. I'm not sure. I know it was after my just a little bit after my 13th birthday because it was spring break when we left, and so the entire spring break I stayed with my other grandmother on my mom's side, and which is surprising that I was allowed to have a relationship because she heavily monitored everything in my life. Like, she set up my Facebook and she told me I can't use the chat. I have to go on Messenger. Like, I have to go to the old Messenger button and do all that, which is stupid because the chat, everything in the chat goes straight to the Messenger, so you can monitor that anyways. And like, I don't even remember what she told me. You can't have your Facebook anymore. I'm like, I looked her said, that's okay. I don't really care about it. It's not like I don't care. It's not like I'm attached to it or anything. And that got me even more trouble. But I was like 13. I was starting to get rebellious. I had all those hormones going through me. All right, but so we stayed an entire spring break with my grandma, which I liked. Then we moved into the house, which we stayed, and we didn't go to school for a week. And when they were going to enroll me into that school, they went on spring break. So I got like 3 weeks of spring break, which I kind of loved. Um, and I had this whole new city to try to explore, and I didn't mind that. Well, the only bad part is that I was starting to go through puberty, so we didn't have any we had electricity, but we didn't have any water running. So that was something. Like I had really bad VO the entire time. I couldn't shave my legs, which were starting, and she'd make fun of me about it. But it's like, we don't have any water. What do you expect me to do? Like we couldn't even shower, and going to a new school, not showering for 3 weeks is really messed up. I only stayed at school for 2 weeks too before my dad finally had enough air. Like I remember we came home from school and they were having like this huge fight, and of course my sister and I know what to do. We just run upstairs to our room just to stay out of the way, and we could hear it getting louder and louder, and all of a sudden my dad came opened our door and said, "Pack up whatever you can. We're leaving." And hey, I have no clue how to pronounce your name, but hi. But I remember just packing up my stuff and helping my sister pack up my stuff, and we were getting ready to head out the door and leave when my stepmom grabs my wrist, like throws me against the wall and yells, "What are you doing? You're not getting anywhere. Go back to your room and unpack." And I think one of the greatest moments of my life was My dad looked at me and said, "Hey, you don't have to listen to her anymore. Go to the car." I go, "Hi, Peyton. I'm just talking about my childhood trauma and why I have mental illness now." Um, and so like I ripped my arm away out of her grasp and like I ran downstairs to the car. And one thing I regret is that I left my sister in that room alone, so she had to deal with all of that. But eventually she made it out. And we were just waiting for my dad to come, and my dad didn't bring anything with him. He just ran out and drove off, and we didn't have enough money to get gas. So we went to a gas station and called my grandparents and said, I left her. I need help. I can't get home." So and it's a 2-hour drive from Anderson to where I live. So we sat in the car and my dad cried, and then that was like probably the second time I've only heard my dad cry. Because I heard him cry once before when he was apologizing to me for something, and I don't. He cried. The first time I heard my dad cry was when my stepmom made him take off his belt and beat the shit out of me. Or it was either that or she was going to call the cops and say he was hitting her. But he was crying in the car, and he eventually turned and looked at my sister like, "Did you guys even like her?" And he looked at him and said, "No, not really." He's like, "Okay." Maybe he kept saying, "I'm sorry I did this to you guys." And we're like, "It's okay, Dad. We understand that she was a monster and everything." So, that was after that, things started to get better. I actually had my own room again because that's one thing she did. She took my room, gave it to her son, then kicked him out and turned it into her own room. And before I painted my room all this really nice blue and white and everything, it was purple. And like the floor, and she painted like the hardwood floors black and everything. And some parts you can still see the black, like the floors are still black. So we've tried our best to cover it with like this ivory rug to try to make it look better. But like it was like this really gross purple color, and she made it her guest room / sewing room. Ugh. But yeah, after that we came back, I think things seemed to get better. But I started noticing that I was having some difficulties. Like I just felt angry and sad. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep, or I either slept so much that it was like crazy. Like I'd go to bed at like 10 o'clock because I was like 14, and I'd wake up at like 3 in the afternoon, or I just didn't sleep at all. And and then my dad was trying to connect with his friends again and go out and play Dungeons and Dragons with them, and so it'd just be me and my sister at the house. And well, we get in a fight, and I just remember blacking out. I was so angry, and next thing I know, she's locked herself in the bathroom, and I'm banging on the door, and she's crying, and I've realized that I've just beat the shit out of my little sister. And I don't even remember it. And that's when I started to realize that there might be a problem. What really sequel deals that I just my heart started racing one day when I was home, and yeah, my stepmom. My mom did other things that I can't really remember, but she's a whole other can of worms. But where was I? My heart was racing. I felt scared for some reason, so I just told my dad, "I'm going on a bike ride," so I went on a mile bike ride, and I finally had to, like, stop. I threw down my bike, and I just grabbed myself, and I started digging my nails into my skin and raking them up and down, and I just started screaming and crying, and just I didn't know what was wrong with me. And so, after I finished that, like, I had, like, nail marks embedded in my skin. There was some blood. I drew some blood. That's also why I keep my nails, like, really short, because I have a lot of panic attacks, and I don't wanna try to hurt myself. So, like, when I start to do anything, I'm not digging nails in my skin. Um, so after that, I rode my bike to my grandma's house just because I know for some reason I always tell my grandma everything first. And I walk out, she looked at me like, what happened to you?" And I said, I need help. There's something wrong with me." And so I started telling her all this stuff, and she's like, "We need to get you in therapy." And it was either 14 or 15 at the stage. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, my stepmom was a psychopath, like a grade A sociopath. And I was the scapegoat in that situation. Like, eventually I got into therapy and I was getting help, the help that I actually really needed. And I remember it was when, they said it was I was sitting down and it wasn't my therapist, it was just the lady trying to get a comprehension of what I needed and what kind of therapist I need to see and everything. And she's like, "Well, what are your symptoms?" And I explained all this, and she's like, "Does depression run in your family?" And my dad and I looked at each other, we just laughed because my grandmother is really depressed, and she's taken antidepressants since the 70s, not the 70s, but like the early 90s, I think. And my other grandma on my mom's side is really depressed. Uh, and she takes antidepressants too, but like depression is something that runs in my family, so that might be another reason why my brain's all chemically imbalanced. But so she's filling out this stuff, and she looked at me and was like, "Well, I have your diagnosis." I'm like, "Okay, what's wrong with me?" She looked at me and was like, "You have PTSD." I'm like, "What? How?" And then she explained, like, "Well, with all the childhood trauma you've experienced, it's normal." I'm like, "Okay, so there's a name for what I have, but I thought I'd actually have to go to war or something to get this diagnosed to have PTSD." She's like, "No, it's actually quite common in young children too." I'm like, "Okay." It's just pretty much that I pushed everything, all the feelings that I was and everything that was happening, everything that I can't talk anymore. Why can't I talk anymore? Okay. I pushed off everything that I was feeling to a later day to when I could actually process it because I had other people to take care of. I had to watch out for my little sister and everything. But I was just sitting there just kind of like PTSD. That's a neat one. That's something. Like I don't take medication for it, and that was my choice just because I don't want to have to chemically alter my brain with medicines to do anything. I feel like I could get better over time on my own. And I've gotten a lot better. I've learned really nice coping skills. I've I'll explain it later, but like my first therapist was really nice, but she left after a month. So I had to get a new therapist, and she left after 2 months. It was a program that I was with. It was called 4 County, and they go through therapists like crazy because they end up eventually getting a better job. So it's just kind of like, okay, all right, that's cool. After a while, I stopped seeing them because I felt like I'd be okay enough without therapy, which was wrong. I ended up going to therapy one more time, and I'll probably end up going again later in life just because therapy is not a bad thing. There's a lot of stigma of having mental illness, that you're crazy and everything, but it's okay to recognize that you have problems, and everyone will go through something, but oh, where do I begin next? I'm gonna go back to before I was in therapy because this is something that I do struggle telling people still. Because it's one thing to not, because I can sit down easily and go to a conversation and be like, yes, I am mentally ill. I do have PTSD. That I'm used to. Oh, 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 Peyton. Well, when I was like in 7th, 8th grade, people, To me, being in junior high and just being, like, from, like, 12 to 14 is, like, the worst time to be alive to begin with, because everyone's starting to go through puberty, everyone's angry with everyone and it's just a whole mess of stuff. Well, I was heavily bullied, which isn't I'm used to. I didn't really like to talk to anyone or anything, but I was always that weird girl in school to begin with. But, like, it got really bad. Like, I was always super bullied, and I didn't wanna go to school or anything, and, I think it was I don't exactly remember how old I was or it was either 14 or 15, but I decided that I actually did want to die and that I didn't wanna keep doing anything anymore, is that it's just I can't keep living. I can't keep doing this. Like, I do whatever I could to skip school. I do whatever I could that I could just stay home and sleep because I just didn't wanna process anything. I just didn't wanna do anything. I just wanted to sleep, and I still do that sometimes where I don't wanna do anything. I just wanna keep sleeping because I don't wanna feel, "You're okay, Peyton." But it's just like, I don't wanna do anything. I just wanna lay down, sleep, and not worry because I do that because I worry about money, I worry about being able to be successful, about being able to get my own place, and just stuff like that. But, like, I decided that if things keep going badly, I'd kill myself. And I had I kept a suicide note in a little jewelry box by my bedside table. And I don't have a suicide note yet, but I still have what I was going to use to kill myself. It was, I broke a mirror when I was 13, and I kept a piece of it glass, and sometimes late at night when I was really upset, I'd sit there, in my bed, and I'd hold it to my wrist and just be like, "Do I want to do this? Is today the day that I'm going to do this?" And I'd probably sit for about 15 minutes contemplating, and finally, I'd eventually just I'd put it away, and I'd just go to bed. It's just like, I still have that piece of glass too, that piece of mirror, and I still keep it in the same drawer, and sometimes I'll take it out and I'll look at it, it's like, I'm glad I didn't do it. I'm glad I stayed around. I'm glad I'm friends with the people I'm friends with, that I'm dating who I'm dating. All it you were smart to just sit and wait. Things did eventually get better. Um, I think it was my sophomore year of high school. My school introduced this program with a program that was working with a place that I would go to get therapy called Fort County, and, it was a program it was an inter-exchange program where it was ran by therapists, but it was in the school, and they choose certain people to be in their class, and I was one of them, and I actually became the face of their program because I was one of their success stories. And they sit around and they teach us coping skills. Well, that's why I'm so used to, like, talking about I have this and everything because I'm so used to having to talk about it. And they and it worked for the most part. I learned so many coping skills. I've gotten good at managing my anxiety, good at managing my anger. I mean, sometimes I still get like I get angry easily, and then I yell a lot, but I have to really repress the urge to lash out and hit, just because I have that urge so strongly. So usually, if I'm angry, I clench my fists and I just kind of keep them close together. Or same thing when I'm having an anxiety attack. I rock a lot and I try to sit on my hands so I don't grab my arms and start raking my nails across them. Like, another thing is I've learned to count to 10 and just not hold and to breathe deeply. So I did that for 3 years. I was actually sad to leave because I was the longest kid in there, the kid that was in there the longest and everything. And everyone was just really nice there. And at the same time, I was seeing another therapist that was actually kind of my family therapist because my grandma saw her all the time. My sister saw her for a while. I saw her continuously. Well, after after I graduated, I got super depressed again. Just and I don't even know why. I was so glad to be done with high school, but it was just more along the lines of I didn't know what to do next, and so I watched all of Parks and Rec, and I just sat home and I ate ice, and that was it. I just eat ice, and I was sad, and I was feeling, and it got worse because I couldn't get a job. I just wanted to work. I just wanted to do something. Well, Mickey Don'ts eventually hired me, and that's where I met Anakin's mom, and that's when we started dating. And things seemed like they were going to get better. And they did. I remember when Anakin had to sit through my first panic attack. He did everything right. He grabbed my hands and held me, and kind of got behind me and held me tight and just told me everything was going to be okay. And eventually I broke out of it and it was okay. I'm trying to think of more stuff to talk about the situation. I don't know what to say now. Just know that things do eventually get better, and that you can always reach out for help somewhere. Someone should always listen, and that there are plenty of great sites to look for. Like there's an app that you can get, I think it's called BetterHelp, and it's full of therapists, and I strongly suggest stuff like that. Just you can talk to someone somewhere and things will be okay. Like I have so many more stories about my stepmom and things that my mom has done in general that are really scummy. But I'm tired and I've talked for about 15 minutes about this and I don't know what else to say now. It's just talking so long about this conversation makes me just tired and sad. But it's something that I've really wanted to talk about for a while. Just because there's so much to it. And I just want to say you shouldn't be afraid to talk about your problems or to say that anything just because the more you talk about it, the easier it is to accept that it happened and move on. And in the end, everything will be okay. Even if they seem bleak and miserable, things do eventually get better. And that's just the way life works, anyways. You have your ups and your downs, but it's important to know that things will cycle back and you'll be okay again. You just have to be strong enough to last. All right. And with this being said, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna take a shower and I'm gonna clean up more of my mess. Which is not a metaphor for my life, I swear. All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching. I will be back next week for Female Friday. And I promise it won't be so depressing. I'll probably sit around, do my makeup, and talk about boys. And I'll talk about Frost. But either way, you are loved out there, and everything will eventually get better for you if you're watching this and you're having a hard time. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.